So first, everyone told me no one will recognize him, but this is Bob Ross. Yes, and to have his honor, like he always showed us how to draw trees and mountains and everything. And so today we're gonna draw Pac-Man. So PaintCode, first what it is. PaintCode is a vector graphics drawing program that you can use as a developer or as a designer to help the development process. It's roughly $99. It's a third-party app that you can find directly on the homepage. I don't know if it's on the App Store. Yeah, and it helps you code generation. So usually if you use Sketch and you draw, or your designer draws something for you and you put it in the app, then you have PNG assets, for example, and then you have to bundle them with the app and ship it all to the App Store, and your app becomes bigger and bigger the more assets you use. In PaintCode, you create the app, the icon, like you do in Sketch, but instead the result is not a PNG that you get. The result is CocoaGraphics code that you just use at runtime, and at runtime the PNG, or the image, gets created. Therefore, the app becomes smaller. Okay. Yeah, so what it helps you with is smaller assets, and it creates for you on-the-fly UI images or UI views, and you can import sketch files. So if you're a designer created Sketch, you can use those files to import into PaintCode directly and start the code generation process. Or you can import PDFs as well, and maybe even other formats. I didn't look too much into it. One big feature, one feature is as well that you have the asset size independent. So if you decide you want to have this icon 22 pixels, and then a month later you decide you want to have it at 24 pixels, you can just redraw the asset and it will be sharp. You don't need to re-export it and then update the PNG into your project. More or less what you only do is, if you use storyboards, in your storyboards you change the constraints. Say the width is now 22, and next time you run the app during runtime, the correct asset will be created with the correct size. So it's always crisp and sharp. Okay. What we're going to do, as I mentioned already, we're going to draw a Pac-Man, and then we later animated it as well. So it's like flapping his mouth up, open and close. And I go show you the very basics of PaintCode, like how to use it. Okay. So if you open PaintCode, then obviously you don't see anything. You have an empty canvas on which one you can draw. Then on the top you have like the tools you have from normal SVG drawing programs as well. They can draw a rectangle, ovals, or have Bezier curves, and all these things. So for example, if you have a small rectangle, okay, I cannot make this bigger, but down here is the code that is automatically generated by PaintCode. So if you draw a rectangle in your canvas, this is the code that will be like later used in your app. So you can directly, while you design, see what is the outcome. So it's always good to know a bit about CocoaGraphics as well, to judge if this is like what you want. So as, for example, as we can see down here, we can see the size of the rectangle we did. So if I were about to put this code into Xcode, my rectangle would always be of the size 138 by 62 at XY position 46 and 24. But we're going to later fix this, so you can have rectangles in any size you want. And then obviously you have the stroke and fill of your rectangle, so you can change the color, or you can change the stroke of your rectangle. And this is possible, of course, with all the ovals, rectangles, and other shapes. One neat feature is that you can have a color database-ish. So if you use a color more often, then you have it here on the side. And let's make it blue. And if you have another shape, then you can hook those colors directly up to shapes. So if you want to have something like this. And the advantage now is if you have these predefined and your designer says, like, instead of red, our company's new main color is green, then you just change it in one place and all your assets get updated. And you can derive from colors. So you can have a subcolor where you can, for example, change the opacity is different, or you can change the saturation. So, which makes it really easy if you change then the main color, all those colors who inherited from this color get updated as well, which makes it easy to skin the app completely with a new color pretty easily. The same is, of course, available for gradients and for shadows, and you can really nicely see if you have a shadow. And you add a shadow to a then you can, like, on the fly see as well how it will look like in the app later. You can import images as well in use. I never did this feature, but one of the great features is variables. So you cannot just have dump objects or dump assets. You can have them as well in relationship to each other. So for example, when you want to have a box that is always double the size of a different box, let's make some small boxes here and create a variable for the width. Then it always reflects. So right now, the width of my box is 53. And if I change the width of my box, no, I have to do it the other way. It updates directly. And I can create a small expression that says double width, where I write something like 2 times my other variable, the width, hook it up to a different asset, and now my asset behaves like this. Okay, so that are the basics. Now we'll create a small Pac-Man. Get rid of everything. So we want our Pac-Man to be 128 by 128. Is it big enough? Can everyone see it? Good. Okay. So we first draw our Pac-Man. Give it a nice yellow color. And then make the mouth open. Maybe a bit. So right now we only have a oval, which is open. We can see the code down here. And the thing is, if we now what you now want to do is we want to make the opening animatable. So for that, I have a small I prepared the expression that I want to use for the upper part of the mouth and for the lower part of the mouth. And I want to have from the app, of course, a possibility to set the width of the mouth. So I use a fraction which can be between 0 and 1. And if it is 0, the mouth should be closed, and if it is 1, the mouth should be wide open. Didn't take it. Okay. So now I created two properties that are depending on animation. Animation will be later the property that I have in code, and from animation I derived two expressions that can that calculate the values of the position of the mouth. I just took them up. Let's just drag and drop. And if I now change the animation, I have a Pac-Man that can flap its mouth. Okay. So as I mentioned before, if we now draw it in the app, it would always be 128 by 128. So we need another property that we can hook up with the size. And in PaintCode, these are called frames. So I have to put my Pac-Man within a frame. And then when I draw the Pac-Man, I will provide a frame in which I want to draw the Pac-Man. So I just draw a frame around our Pac-Man. And then down here in the drawing method, we can get we have the animation property that I have for the angle of the mouth, and then we have the frame, which where we can say in which size we want to draw our Pac-Man. And you can see down here as well the expression that I wrote down of how to calculate the mouth. And if we now change the frame, we see that it doesn't work, because we have to tell everything inside the frame how it behaves, how the sides of the frame are in how they behave to the objects behave to the frame. So here an old exactly, I already heard it. Springs and struts. So we have to say that our objects can resize and should always keep a fixed distance to our frame. And now after we fix that, our Pac-Man resizes in every possible way. Good. Everyone with me? Cool. Let's see. Did we do everything? Yes. Okay. Let's see this in action. I have it running here. So how you get it into Xcode, I can show you in a second. It's not very complicated, but it takes a lot of time. You have to export it in, then you have to drag the files into your project, set it up, import them, subclass. So I thought this would just take too much time, so I just prepared it. So here's the Pac-Man used without the frame, and I said it should always draw on the bottom right, so you can see. And I set the background to red, so it's seen. So the frames here are the same size. And this one is a Pac-Man where I didn't set the frame within PaintCode, and then the Pac-Man becomes only 128 by 128. And this Pac-Man is 256. So that's why frames are important to use in PaintCode directly. So yeah, otherwise you just export it, and then you get two files. You get an M file and a header file, And here's all the code. So if you have multiple icons and assets and images, you only have to export it once, and everything is in one file. And what you see on this tab is just for this one asset. The big advantage in using the style kit, which I introduced in version 2, is that everything gets collected in one place. And if you export it once, the project file remembers the position where you export it into your project. So next time you don't have to go through this complicated export process and sync it up with your project. You just go and say you want to export it again, and then it will just overwrite the files in your project, and you're up to go. So you change the color, you just press Command R, switch to Xcode, build it, and everything is up to date. So it's really easy and rapid to develop. I have made a second demo where I added, just for fun, some gesture recognizer, and I set up the animation property to CA display link. So if we run it now, we'll see that our Pac-Man is actually animating. And we can move it around. So the way right now how this works is we change the property of the animation variable, and then we have to redraw the whole frame, which of course makes it really slow. So if we switch over here to the CPU, okay, it runs right now on my computer. Of course, it's beefy, but if you run it on an actual device, the utilization is like at 20% for small animations, and if you have more complicated animation, it's easy that you get into 50% of CPU time just for those animation, because you have to redraw 60 times a second. So if you have any infinite running animations, don't use PaintCode, or not in this way. But for assets, it's awesome, and for short animations, good. Okay, so I can show you some more advanced how we use it. So in our current app, we have. I'll show you later how it looks inside the app. But we wanted to have an animation as well. So first we did it in PaintCode, and we animated it and realized, okay, this is killing the CPU. But we did it, and now it's at least nice to show you. So we have multiple variables that we can tweak, like on the fly. So we have like flying around satellites, and we have can change the look of the progress bar. So it helps you as well a bit in, if you try to make like a prototype, then you can just build it in PaintCode and play around with the variables and how it looks like. And this might be something nice we could actually build in core animation and then save all the CPU. One really cool feature, because we built it and we thought like, oh, this looks nice, we want to get this into the app, but not with PaintCode animations. So we had to split it up in multiple layers. So because some stuff rotates counterclockwise and some things clockwise, we wanted to split it up. So PaintCode has the ability to have Boolean values as well, and has the possibility of visible and invisible. So while we draw in one CA layer, we disable all layers in PaintCode and draw in one layer. And when we draw in the next layer, we enable the next layer of PaintCode and so forth. And so we have like only like one UI view, which is composed of multiple CA layers. And to the user, of course, it just looks like the whole thing. But under the hood, we have multiple CA layers where we can use core animation with different animations and keyframe animations and get to the result that we want. And I can show you how this looks like. So as you can see, some satellites move clockwise, others move counterclockwise. And when I press on Update Now, everything becomes faster and have a loading animation. And this one doesn't use, it's almost not measurable. If you run it in instruments, you don't see any peaks or anything. It's like a flat line of CPU usage. So yeah, good. Advantages of PC and disadvantages. Yeah, as I mentioned before, your app, you can make your app size become smaller. Your app icons always are like crisp sharp. If you decide to make them bigger, you don't have to re-export them from any Photoshop or whatever tool. You just change them in code or in storyboards, and next time you run the app, they get always generated on runtime. It's really nice to have this possibility of putting it to put it into groups and say only which groups you want to draw. So if you have what we have for animations, it's nice. Or if you have a pro version, then you can decide, oh, I want to draw our logo with the pro icon or without the pro icon. There are like endless possibilities to use it. Disadvantages, as mentioned multiple times before, for animations, it's really high CPU usage. The app actually crashed quite a lot for me, and I wrote the support, and one time they came back really fast and gave me a pre-beta version that is like much more stable, and then the next 3 crash reports I gave them, I didn't hear anything from them back. So okay, so conclusion, yeah, don't use PaintCode for animations if they are running infinite like they do in our, they're running always. That would be not okay if they would like use 50% of CPU usage all the time. Learn core animations. If you want to use PaintCode and animate stuff, really look into core animations. And for that, I can really recommend this book by Nick Loessl, iOS Core Animation Advanced Techniques. Really awesome book. Of course, Apple's own documentation about core animations is really good as well. And then David Rönnquist, who is maybe here as well, his blog is really good as well to read. He has a lot of insights and edge cases where he explains them why they happen. And so, yeah. Last thing, Rai Wenderlich has multiple tutorials on PaintCode, but they use NS Timer to drive the animations, which you should never do. And yeah, so I don't know if the Rai Wenderlich tutorials are, I probably would recommend against them to use them. Otherwise, that's it.